Welcome to the Teacher's YouTube video by NAPE. Last week I spoke to a teacher about educational visits, and you'd probably be asking to yourself, why on earth did I do that? Well, the reason why I did that was I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to find out how school visits are organised and how it actually links to the curriculum? What's it all about? I then later spoke to the coordinator at the supermarket where the teacher took the children for their educational visit, and she explained how she accommodated those children and how she added to the curriculum that was being offered by that visit. So I hope you enjoy this visit. Thank you very much indeed for coming to this interview this afternoon in this lovely classroom. It's some wonderful displays here. And thank you for hopefully being able to answer questions about educational visits, particularly one to the local supermarket, which I saw the other day. So just to kick things off, how would you describe the context of this school?
So we are a primary school within Bedford. So the intake is from foundation at the age of 4 up to now year 6, which is 12 years old. We originally in Bedford, we used to do a 3-tier system. So the school has now transitioned from being a lower school, taking up to year 4, to now taking up to year 6. So we've just had the new year 5 and year 6 classes. The catchment area, we've got a wide range of children. We have got children from different backgrounds and ethnicities, which is great for that multicultural feel, because within Bedford there are 148 different languages spoke.
Yeah.
So it's very good to have that range of children and within our school.
Roughly how many educational visits do you tend to go on or organise in this school?
Well, I arrange them as class teacher.
Yes.
So our EVC, educational visits coordinator, is the person that signs off all of the paperwork.
Yes.
For myself, I arrange them for my subject of computing, and also for year 3, because I'm a year 3 teacher, so I arrange them for year 3 alongside my colleagues. And then I have recently taken part with a local shopping centre, a competition, which that's for older children in the school, our year 6s. So I have put together the trip for those year 6s to go on to this shopping centre as part of this competition. Part of our year 3 curriculum. So the trip that you saw the other day in a local supermarket, that was part of our links into our topic that we're doing at the moment in year 3. Yeah.
Okay, good. So in terms of the curriculum, how do you feel it complements the school's curriculum?
Well, within the school we follow a scheme called Cornerstones, which just gives us the basis of our creative curriculum. It gives us some ideas on what to use within literacy and also our other subjects such as geography, history, design and technology, so on and so forth.
Yes.
Because of that, every half term we do a different topic, and the topic we're currently studying is Scrumdiddlyumptious.
Of course.
Which, as part of Scrumdiddlyumptious, you're looking at all the different types of food. You're looking at food groups. There's opportunities to try different fruits and vegetables and different foods from around the world. We also look at the geographical aspects of where does food come from, and not only just the geographical concept, but we also look at the actual physical of where does it come from. Does it come from a tree or a field or an animal?
Yes, of course.
So because of that, you obviously buy your food from a supermarket, and where better to see a variety of different food than to go to a local supermarket, where we got a chance to look at different foods from around the world.
Very good. Now, for the teachers out there, what is Cornerstones, and is there a website for Cornerstones?
So Cornerstones is an organisation that a school can pay a subscription to. They do have a website, and It's got a load of different. It goes from foundation right through to year 6. I do believe there may be a secondary scheme, but I'm not too sure about that.
That's fine. Thank you.
And it does provide all planning. They have got a few resources on their website as well.
Yes.
And they do a separate science scheme as well, where you can potentially do science experiments linked into.
Yes. So as part of your planning through Cornerstone, and you've mentioned the physicality and perhaps the diet as well, and the types of fruit and vegetables, how is that? How does that interact with the set curriculum for the school? Does it identify the geographical, historical, scientific aspects of the curriculum?
Yes,
Are they actually identified?
They are identified, however, we do have to supplement it ourselves. So we do have to take the basic ideas and framework that the Cornerstones gives.
Yeah.
And their ideas roughly linked to the national curriculum, but we do sometimes have to find our own resources and make our own things to make sure we are following the exact national curriculum and achieve all of those targets that we need to teach.
Yes, I suppose relevant to the context of where the school finds itself anyway.
Of course, yes.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's very useful. Do you have paperwork that we could see afterwards, which sort of identifies those different parts of the curriculum?
Yes, I can certainly get some of that out for you.
Good. Well, we'll have a look at that. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Okay, in terms of this particular project of the year 3s, and I think it was just year 3s you said.
It was just year 3s.
Was it 3 classes or?
2 classes.
2 classes, great. In terms of the year 2 classes, can you identify some of the, if you like, highs of these visits? Did you go out yourself, for instance?
Okay, so this the fantastic thing about the visit is it was originally arranged through my colleague actually made touch base with Sainsbury's themselves.
Yes.
Through Stephanie, who I believe you're interviewing as part of this video.
Yes.
And through talking to her, we were able to talk about the things that we would be teaching as part of the topic. So she was then able to go and arrange things in Sainsbury's. So one of the massive highs was we had a talk at the different deli counters, where we had members of staff from Sainsbury's explaining where different cuts of meat come from, which was brilliant. We had a talk from the fish saying, like, well, this doesn't necessarily look like a fish because it's a fillet of fish, but this is how they get the fillet of fish.
Yes.
And there's, look at this fish as well. Look, can you see what this looks like? So spoke about that. They took us to the cheese counter, spoke about the different types of cheese. So it was very interactive and it got some of the staff involved. The other highs is, obviously, you go to a supermarket, you tend to go in, get your produce, go to the tills, done. You don't actually get to see the finer workings of the supermarket. So Stephanie was fantastic and arranged a behind-the-scenes tour. So the children got to see where lorries come in, which we were quite fortunate on the day when my class visited, where a lorry was being unloaded at the bay. So they were able to see the process of the food coming in on a lorry, getting unloaded, putting into the warehouse, and then we got to walk into a walk-in fridge where they store your chilled goods. We then got to see, we didn't go in for obvious reasons, but we did get to see a walk-in freezer and what the freezers look like. And and they opened the door so children could feel the chill as it came out. We also got to see where they store everything and the different offices that are out the back. So you got a real feel of what actually happens when you go, how the food gets onto the shelves and how Sainsbury's work.
You mentioned the word scrumptious, so did the children have a chance to taste some of these products? So
we were very grateful to Stephanie and her team because we were taken into the staff room, the staff area, and while we were in there we had an activity where they had to identify which food group foods belong to. Was it dairy, was it protein, was it carbohydrates? And after completion of this activity, the children got to try different foods from deli counters. So we had different types of cheese, different types of meat. We had a few different things, like there was some chickpeas to taste, there was some different bread to taste.
Wow.
We had some olives as well, which was very interesting because we had olives and an olive bread. And it was quite curious in the fact that children were tasting the olives and were going, oh, that's horrible. But then they were really enjoying the bread that had olives in it. So that was quite an interesting thing to observe. So we did get lots of fantastic food while we were there, and they then sent us back with some fruits. We could make some fruit salad at school, and they also sent us back with little gingerbread men to decorate, and so the children could take a nice little souvenir away.
Was there any? Did the shop identify sort of mathematical or scientific aspects of what they were trading in?
We didn't necessarily look at the mathematical side.
Yes.
The scientific side would be the food groups.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yes. But we did also do a bit of geography where we had a map of the world.
Yes.
And identified where food geographically came from.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic. Were there any sort of areas on reflection didn't go so well, and perhaps what you could do next time to get around those particular problems?
I think one of the low aspects we had is because of the transport that we used was the school minibus.
Yes, that's right.
It meant that we could only take the class in 2 halves.
Yes.
So we had one half of a class and another. We did plan activities for the children to do the first group when they got there, and then the second group as they were waiting for the first group to be taken home, and activities at the school for them to be getting on with. But because of that, it did mean there was a limitation on staffing.
Yes.
Which caused, as you were walking around doing the activity in Sainsbury's waiting for the other group, it did mean you had to have a really tight group and really hope that you had parent volunteers and parent helpers, which we were fortunate. We did have quite a few parent helpers.
Oh, that's great, yes.
However, it's a case of, for future planning, it's thinking about what if in upcoming years, or if we do the trip again, how will we staff it if we don't get as many parental helpers?
Yes, of course.
So that would be the main low.
Was there a limitation in the time? Because obviously parents need to get back to collect their children from school as well.
There was a limitation on time where we did it in the morning.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So that meant that we had until lunchtime.
Yeah, yes.
Which also had and there was limitations as well of obviously the staff at Sainsbury's, what time the staff were working at Sainsbury's, when their shifts ended, so on and so forth. So we were limited on that aspect as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. In fact, you probably covered the next question. But what, as you as a teacher, has learned from this process?
What I've learned from the whole process is, from now, because I've been at the actual trip itself,
yes,
I didn't know exactly what we were going to be doing at Sainsbury's. So we had a general rough idea as to what Stephanie was planning, but we didn't know the exact 100%.
You felt slightly out of control.
Which, yes, in a way. And that had the effect where I'd planned some work at the school, and I'd planned for some work for us to be doing, for example, Map of the World, which I wasn't entirely aware that we would be doing at Sainsbury's, which meant that I'd already planned to do work, so I then had to plan a completely different lesson for the lesson that I'd planned. So
yes, of course. Because
now I know what to expect at Sainsbury's, I now know if we manage to get to do the trip again next year, I know to change what we're doing at school again. I also think when we were at Sainsbury's, there were a lot of activities that we did out the back, which we end up having a limited time on, so we couldn't actually complete them to the best of our abilities.
Yes.
So it meant for some of the children, they got a little bit anxious in a way because they couldn't finish all of the tasks.
Yes, of course.
So although I had to plan different activities, when we got back to school, we did end up redoing our Maps of the World because some of the children hadn't completed it to their specifications, and it was on request of the children.
Well, that's nice.
So it wasn't a case of me going,
yes,
oh no, that's not very good. It was more the children saying, oh, can we have some more time to finish our maps? So I then went away, and because I had already planned and prepared fresh maps, we then sat down with new maps and sat down and did that.
You mentioned children and some of the comments they came out with. How did they feel, without me actually asking a child? What was sort of reactions were you getting, and what they say before and after, if you like?
So the children coming up to the trip, some of the children were very much, but we go there with our parents to do shopping. We're thinking, yes, but it's going to be fun. We've got some fun activities. But but I don't like going shopping with mum and dad. And it was very much those sort of comments, whereas there are other children that were very excited of, we're going to a supermarket without parents? Wow, that's like what adults and grown-ups do. And they were very... So you had a real mix of some children excited about it, some children thinking, oh no, we're just going to go and do shopping. But then when they learnt that they were going on the school minibus, because this cohort haven't been on that yet, it was more about, oh, minibus, yes! So it turned from all of that attention. While they're at Sainsbury's, when they got there, because one of the activities that we had planned for the group to do while they waited for the rest of the class was to go up and down the aisles, actually find where you would find certain items. So I'd give them a sort of shopping list, and on there they had to find things such as coffee. So to go down the aisles, I'll find coffee in that number aisle. And they quite enjoyed that because it gave them something different to notice. And there was also another activity of looking at things like the fruits and vegetables. Where do they come from? So it got them actually looking at food labels,
and they enjoyed doing that.
And they really enjoyed doing those activities.
Yes.
And at the end of the trip, when we got back to school and we were talking about, what did you think of that? All the children absolutely loved it. I think because they got to go behind the scenes, I think that was the main thing that the children were talking about.
Yes.
And the children were going, there was a member of staff, a Sainsbury's member of staff, while we were there on the day my class visited, who was absolutely brilliant. So he was helping unload the lorry, and he came over, and as he heard Stephanie say to the children, "Oh, let's go and try some food now at the back." So this gentleman joined on the back of the queue, and some of the children going, You can't come, you're not Sainsbury's. And the man was interacting with children going, shh, just don't tell your teacher that I'm following. And obviously I'd already seen him and was just pretending that he wasn't there. And there were the children going, he's not doing his work. And because of the staff interacting the way they interacted with children, it made the children just enjoy it even more. Because I'm not sure if you're aware of the neurological research of if you're happy, because of your mind producing dopamine and your body making it, you can actually learn a lot more. So because they were so happy and they enjoyed themselves on the trip, it meant that we've now made memories for these children that they're going to have for life. And they're probably always going to now talk about the man at Sainsbury's that tried to follow them on their trip and get the free food. And they're probably always going to remember going into the fridges. And so it's going to enlighten those memories for them. And of course, which is really good to see for the children.
Dan, that is fantastic. Have you got, I mean, you've added a lot. So thank you very much indeed. Perhaps we can look at children's work now and some of the documents. That would be really good.
Yes, fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so this is our planning and checklist for a school visit that we've put together as a school. So when it comes to a visit, we have to follow these steps. So why do we need the visit? So the rationale first. Does it link to the curriculum? Ideally, you do want it to link to the curriculum in some way. Then make sure you're aware of the policy and any updates in any education policy that's happened in the school. Then when we then have the trip in mind, where we're going, we then have to make a preliminary visit to the venue. So this trip to Sainsbury's, myself and my two parallel year 3 teachers, the three of us spent one evening, went up to Sainsbury's, had a look around, what sort of things they're doing, spoke to Stephanie about the different activities that they'll be doing. And then that meant after that we were able to make notes for our risk assessments. When we came back to school, we then put together a risk assessment as to how do we get to and from the school, which we use the minibus. We had to do a risk assessment for the minibus, making sure things like children having seatbelts on, so on and so forth. And then what risks are there at Sainsbury's? So where are the children getting on and off the minibus? Where are the children going to be at any time? Looking at the toilets, where are the toilets are going to be? Can the children access them?
Did Stephanie identify risks as well for you?
Stephanie did tell us of some of the risks that we'll be doing. Usually, places that you visit on school trips, they usually have their own risk assessment that they do send through to the school. Which is already covered. So we're usually quite happy with.
Good. So you can
those
append
details.
it or add it to this.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that's useful.
And then we then have to make sure when we've done the risk assessment, obviously looking at things such as date and costs and when we're going to go. Then when we've done all the risk assessment and put a pack together, we then have to get approval from the head teacher.
Yes.
And also our education visits coordinator. We have to get permission from those to make sure we can run the trip. And then at that point, we then confirm with the venue that it's all okay. We then arrange transport. We send letters home to parents, making sure that parents are aware and we've got permission to take the children off site. Any money that is required for the trip, for example, for payment of transport, for example, we make sure that the information has been sent to parents, and anything that they do send in voluntary is all collected and sent off to the office. Making sure we've got a list of children, lists of the adults, making sure we've got lists of their emergency contact details if they're coming to help, and then making sure, most importantly, that children all have food, and that we've been if you're going to be off school for the whole day, letting the kitchen know in good time that we need X amount of lunches made by the kitchen, please, for such a date. Can we please have this amount of this and this and this and this? Thank you very much. Sometimes teachers do forget to tell the kitchen, and suddenly in a mad rush that morning, oh no, we forgot to tell you. And that obviously never goes down well with the kitchen, because they usually don't have the things together to do it.
No, I can understand that. You mentioned voluntary contributions. So the school, I suppose, has to make up the difference for the cost. Does that come from, say, the Parents Association, or straight from the school's budget? Is there a budget for visits?
So in the past, when I've had trips, because it all now has to be a voluntary contribution, you will get parents that won't pay. Yes,
I understand that.
Which, fair enough. But that money, if it's not paid and we've got bits missing, it usually comes out of the school budget. So our finance person will look through all of when they're doing their new financial year, they make their budget requests and they actually plan to have an X amount of money set aside to cover any trips that might be happening, to pay that extra supplementary charge that may be missing. However, if the child is in receiving pupil premium, then usually the school, out of the pupil premium budget, will pay for that child.
Yes, understood. Good.
Checklist of information to parents and guardians. So when we've thought of what trip we're doing, we have to send off all of this information in a letter to parents. Then parents are aware of when we're going, what time, how we're getting there, who's leading it, which staff we have going on. We also have to put a request out for parents helpers if we can't staff it ourselves, and then just an idea of what they're doing. If they have to give a voluntary contribution, how much that voluntary contribution would be, because I'm not sure if you're aware of the government changes of we're not allowed to ask for money and a payment anymore. It has to be a voluntary contribution now. And then how to pay it if we're doing that. Whether we need, if the parents need to provide food for the child or not, and if they don't have to provide it, then what food do they want in their packed lunch from the school kitchen. And then we also have to give them advice on what clothes do we wear. So for example, when I was in year 1, I arranged a trip to a forest, so therefore the letter went out saying, okay, sensible clothes, so not necessarily school uniform, but things like jogging bottoms, that sort of clothing, outdoor clothes, and then making sure that your shoes aren't your school shoes, but something like trainers or walking boots, something comfortable like that.
Fair enough.
And then obviously parental consent with can they actually, do they actually allow their child to go on the trip or not? And then
in this day and age, under prohibited items, number 12, does that include mobile phones, for instance?
Well, being a primary school, the children that tend to have mobile phones, they're left at home anyway. our year 5, year 6 children might have mobile phones if they're walking to and from school.
Yeah, but not on trips.
But when it comes to school, they have to put them, if they've brought them to school, they have to be locked in their locker in the classroom, and that's where they stay.
And they don't go out with them on trips?
They would not go out with them on trips, no.
Okay. And the rest seems fairly straightforward. Good, thank you very much for that. Good.